So like I listened to his album Transa, which I found out means fuck. I listen to that album a lot. I think it's great. I think it's fucking real good. It's like Scott Walker or like Glenn Campbell or Lee Hazelwood even. Like it's amazing, you know. I personally wasn't a part of the poetry books because I was me and like two of the lads had played music. Yeah, the guys were releasing poetry. I was writing poetry with them, but I didn't actually contribute to the books because I was working a lot at the time. So I had played music briefly with Grian, the singer, and the bass player. So then after they released the book, then we decided to do the band again seriously. The basis of the band whenever we were doing Doggerel was kind of Velvet Underground, trying to use the music and trying to use imperfections and not trying to make like a ballsy rock album, but trying to make something that's kind of jagged and real and quite visceral, you know, which I think Velvet Underground kind of pioneered that sound. And like I think if you listen to any kind of like really good alternative like rock album from the last like fucking 40 years, it always has some sort of nod to the Velvet Underground. So we were kind of just listening to a lot, like when I started we were listening to a lot of like 60s garage, like the Seeds and kind of that era, and even like 50s music like Buddy Holly was like incredibly inspiring. But probably the band that inspired Doggerel the most was the Velvet Underground. And that was kind of the basis of any song that we'd write. We'd kind of sing what would Velvet Underground do. And then some of the songs just kind of ended up having a bit more melodic inspiration from the likes of like 80s bands like The Cure and Joy Division. But yeah, I mean, Doggerel being about Dublin was because that was all we knew at the time, you know. That was completely what our lives were. Our lives are all encompassing around Dublin, you know, and it kind of developed into, like, going into the second album, it kind of developed into, we weren't in Dublin anymore, so it had to, and plus, like, we didn't really know where we were half the time, you know what I mean? Like, we were just being thrown in bands and just traveling around, so we put the pressure on ourselves to write the second album in such a quick time. So I think that sort of pressure affected the songwriting because there's a kind of a loose, manic sort of quest for beauty. There was kind of a lot more, I think, like some of the influences that came in were like The Birthday Party and a British band called Broadcast, and we maybe got a bit more inspired by kind of like dreamy, kind of ethereal kind of sounds. Then like Doggerel is very harsh and kind of biting, whereas from getting into these kind of more floaty kind of sounds, it kind of reflected the way that we were, because we just felt like we were kind of floating around. So and I think it was good to kind of bring those kind of influences into our sound, because it makes the harsher bits more harsh whenever it's kind of mixed in with maybe a bit more ethereal, kind of dreamy kind of sounds. To like see people in Brazil, you know, connecting with those songs was like, it was really wild. It's pretty wild, especially like with the first album, because it was primarily about Dublin. I think like it was very unexpected. I think we were just hoping that, you know, maybe people in the UK would be into it, hopefully, and in Europe. And the fact that it traveled as far as it did really, you know, opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, even if you're singing about Dublin, or even if like your experiences are in one place, you know, the world isn't actually that different, and like some of the same problems that are going on in Dublin, you know, like the likes of gentrification and the gap between, you know, the wage gap between like, you know, people who are like very like working class and then the upper tier. All these like kind of themes are very similar, so people could connect to that, and that kind of opened my mind to the world being a lot smaller, and, you know, people regardless of, you know, of language and culture are generally kind of very similar in the things that they want and the emotional things that they can connect with. From working in bars and in Dublin, I've met so many Brazilian people over the years, because there's so many that have moved to Ireland in the last, like 10 years or something. I only started listening to this guy maybe in October last year, but Caetano Veloso. So like I listened to his album Transa, which I found out means fuck. I listen to that album a lot. I think it's great. I think it's fucking real good. It's like Scott Walker or like Glenn Campbell or Lee Hazelwood even, like it's amazing, you know. We just thought we can't wait to come to Brazil, and hopefully after all this stuff is over and shows can start to commence again, it's definitely one that we want to be able to fulfill, because like it is wild, like seeing comments on YouTube and stuff being like, come to Brazil, and just I definitely love to, you know.